Hey guys, welcome back to more neighbor stories. In this video, my crazy neighbor offed 4 people and the FBI came looking for me in return. However, I am actually innocent. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. So I've wanted to tell this story for about a year now and put it off mainly due to some kind of fear of getting in trouble, since it does relate to the FBI and showing that, like everybody else, they are capable of making mistakes too. A viewpoint that I feel they probably don't like the world knowing about. Because of this, I'm going to be really careful with the details that I add and of course change all the names involved. If anything seems vague or pieces are missing, that is why. Now on to what happened. My name is David and I have a city job working at a post office. One day I was home and alone with my wife and 3 kids out at Target getting them some new clothes for school. I'm sitting on my couch watching football when my door gets busted down and a ton of guys just come running in. I'm on the ground with a knee in my back and handcuffs being slapped on me with zero explanation. I cannot speak from the way they are handling me and throwing me around like I'm some kind of ragdoll. I never saw the full damage they did, but could hear them tearing the house apart looking for things and screaming at me, asking where the guns were. I don't own any guns and they didn't believe me, and I was in the back of a car being driven into the station after my rights were read to me. I know enough to keep my mouth shut, aside from asking for a lawyer, no matter how nice the detective they put me in a room with seemed. I've heard enough crap on the news and all I wanted was to speak to a lawyer and to call my wife and warn her what was happening. It turns out they really did tear the house up and I told her to take photos of everything, which she did before cleaning it up. I was there waiting the entire day in a tiny cell waiting for a lawyer to show up and speak to me. When reading me my rights, they told me that I was arrested for murder and I was scared out of my mind that I was going to be locked up for life for something I did not actually do. My lawyer came by and explained the charges against me. I told him that I had zero clue what they were talking about and I had never even been to the places they were claiming the murder took place, despite their claims of having DNA evidence. After more talking, he went to go and speak to the detectives to try and find out more information and about when I could get a bail hearing. I was again waiting for a long time until I was randomly let out of my cell, uncuffed and told that there had been a mistake. I knew there was a damn mistake and I was beyond angry that they did not even seem sorry about what they did. I was able to get all the information from my lawyer that he was legally allowed to tell me. Basically, the FBI agents were after a murderer and because of some mix-up in the system, they came after me by mistake. I didn't know how that was possible until I got home and spoke to my wife Emily. Emily, I'm so glad that you're home. Did they hurt you? Me, a little bit when they arrested me, but nothing serious. How are the kids doing? Emily, they were scared to see the house like that and hear their dad was arrested. I told them it would be fine though. Me, I will talk to them in the morning when they wake up. Emily, did you hear about neighbor? Before you got here, the police came again and arrested him. That was when some more pieces managed to click inside my head. Not the actual numbers, but I live at 21 and he lives at 31. We look very similar too, which I didn't realize until it was pointed out to me. And it turns out that he also had a job with the city working at an office. I never could get a confirmation about it, but it was obvious that he was the one they were after and some wires got crossed. I didn't know what emotion to feel because I just learned that my neighbor was a murderer on top of everything else that happened to me. All I knew was, in that moment, I wanted to fall asleep and just be grateful for the fact that I was in my own bed and not some cold jail cell. For me though, the next step was getting some justice over the fact I was arrested and interrogated and put into jail wrongfully. I was able to get a lawyer who would file a petition for the wrongful arrest and ask for some compensation. We both knew that no FBI agents or local police were getting fired over this. At the same time though, we knew that they would want to just keep things a little quiet. It was not a lot of money, but I did get some money for my pain and suffering and trauma over the entire thing. I also got an apology from the guys who arrested me and explained the information they were given showed that I was gonna be armed and could be killed. It was a tough situation of me understanding their side, but also being really mad about the whole thing. The story doesn't end there though, because you can be sure I was finding any information about my neighbor as it was being released into public records. So this guy who lived right next to me and seemed like the most normal person had actually killed 4 people. I won't go into graphic details about the murders, but I will say this. He was cheating on his wife and all 4 women were his side chicks. When he was done with one, he figured killing them would stop them from telling his wife. 4 cases of premeditated murder means that he is never gonna see the light of day again. Not gonna say exactly what his sentencing was, because again, I don't want things traced back to me and to end up in a cell again. I will say that his wife was a mess after he got arrested and she moved out of that house. I heard that they kept having to lower the price because people found out a murderer lived there and didn't want to buy it. I don't even know if the current people living there are aware, but I'm not gonna be the ones to tell them. And for anybody wondering if my kids seemed to be fine once they knew I was okay, if they saw me getting arrested, I'm sure they wouldn't have been, so I can once again only be grateful that I was home alone when it happened. Also remember that no matter the reason you're being arrested, once you are read your rights and put into handcuffs, the only thing you should say to the police is that you wanna speak to a lawyer. If I didn't do that, who knows how this whole thing could have played out instead. And here, ripe stars, I gotta say, that's actually one of the things I really like about the United States and the system there, that you are not forced to speak to the police if you don't have to. There are actually quite a few countries where you have to talk to the police, and I think usually that is not really to your advantage if you ask me. Anyway, the next one is titled, "My husband is a disgusting internet troll." And by the way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Also, if you don't want to miss any of my daily videos, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This story starts like this. So, my husband left the browser open on our laptop after he went to work this morning. I go to work after, so I usually hop on and do my own things on my real Reddit account. Today, however, I was disgusted at what I found. So basically, my husband is a troll. A really nasty troll. He leaves horrible mean comments to all kinds of people. They are filled with racist slurs, awful insults, and he tears into fat people, ugly people, etc. He loves to troll around places like to discourage people, etc. And he sends private messages to people to call them names, calls women who post on raunchy subreddits, lewds, and ladies of the night, etc. I was horrified, completely horrified. My husband is a nice, gentle man who's supportive and kind. In our 9-year relationship, we fought 3 times total. I never thought that this is a behavior he would take part in, but this is something else. It made me wonder what else he did on the internet, so I looked at the browser history to find him also harassing teenagers on Tumblr, telling them to off themselves, calling cute girls ugly and fat and stupid, etc. And basically, it horrified me to think that this was the man who could be raising our daughter with me in a few months. I understand trolling can be fun, we've all laughed at Ken M once or twice. But this goes far beyond what I ever imagined. I don't know how to look at him. I've lost respect for the man I looked up to and admired. Good men don't tear each other down. Good people don't do that in general. I don't know what to do. I wanna bring it up to him, but I don't know how to do it without him automatically getting defensive and spouting off the same lines you hear from people, aka get a thicker skin, the world is not kisses and rainbows, etc. Of course it isn't, but why contribute to it? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. If you would be in this situation, would you still be together with this person? Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Some people on Reddit said, "You never suspected this kind of behavior based on how he interacts with you and others? That's extremely horrifying. He seems like he has a lot of pent-up anger or resentment, and he's taking it out on people over the internet. I think the best thing to do is to talk to him about it. You are having a child with him, and you cannot just walk away from that, as horrifying of a discovery as this may be. But you need to be careful when you approach him. You were not snooping, he left it open. He cannot get mad at you for that, I'm sure, but he will be extremely defensive. Update us and let us know that you're okay." OP then answered, "I don't intend on just walking away, but I'm stunned and horrified at the kind of person he's showing himself to be, you know." Someone else said, "How would you know this when moderators in these subreddits delete those types of comments and subsequently ban the username? He is trolling on some heavily moderated places, so he cannot be making frequent comments under one name. Do you have access to all of his troll accounts?" OP answered, "There were comments up that he had just left that morning, that's how I know." OP then replied to a deleted comment, calling strangers awful names, harassing them and doing things just to hurt their feelings does mean that he's not as good of a person as I originally thought he is. Playing Call of Duty is one thing, but telling a teenage girl to end her life is something else. Update to the story, I confronted him about the issue very tamely over breakfast. I asked him flat out if he was harassing and bullying people online, and he said yes, and immediately withdrew. After telling him that I needed to know why, really why, not just, I don't know, he said he needed time to really think about it. When he finally gave me his answer, I was disappointed. He said he trolled and bullied people because it was an outlet for him to relieve stress. He said he didn't view the people as real or what he was doing as anything other than a joke, and if it hurt feelings, those people have bigger problems and it's not my fault. I told him that it was not an acceptable behavior of an adult and that he needed to stop it and find another way to express his frustrations that did not involve hurting strangers. He said he would think about it, but unfortunately, he is still doing it. I saw it happening a few mornings back, and after he left, looked again to see more comments and posts, and I was disappointed. This was not the man I married, or so I thought, but I guess it is. I told him that we either need to go to counseling for this or start the separation process. I told him that I couldn't trust him to help raise a child if he speaks to strangers, children included, the way he does online. I let him know that I thought it was cowardly, pathetic, and that I've lost a lot of respect for him. I knew this would be abrasive and hurtful, and I don't like that I had to tell him that, but I cannot look at him the same way. We have not had intercourse, have barely touched, and I cannot see my husband as a loving gentleman anymore. I'm not afraid of him, but I'm disgusted with this behavior. That's the sort of thing children do. I made an appointment for counseling for myself over this. Unfortunately, he told me that he wouldn't be going to counseling because there's nothing wrong with what he is doing, and he deserved to have his me time and release his emotions. And because I want to protect my child myself, I've asked him to leave the house. He is staying with some friends, but I don't think this will lead to a reconciliation. I'd hoped this story would have gone another way. Then some people in the comments said, and OP replying to a deleted comment, I never said anything about custody in my comments at all, other people are bringing that up. I would not restrict his visitation or custody at all, so long as he proves that he's a reasonably fit parent. But adults should be able to talk to adults whatever way they like. Well, I'm not restricting his freedom to talk to people in any way he wants. I am, however, telling him that his choice to do such is unacceptable behavior for a grown man. He was given the option to see a therapist, and he was given the option to stop. He was not willing to do either. If he changes his mind, he knows he's got wiggle room. This is the first step. Then OP replying to another deleted comment, it's not a funny quirk to tell a kid to end his life. It is not harmless. It's not acceptable behavior for a good person. Good people don't tear other people down. I'm not a fan of breakups, but you're painting this as a different situation. And by the way, guys, it's absolutely astonishing how apparently some idiots on Reddit defend the troll, especially trolls who tell kids to end themselves. Sometimes I'm really thinking, what the hell is wrong with this website? But then again, at least those were deleted comments. Either way, I gave him options on how we can fix this. I gave him a chance, but he declined it and clung to acting like a horrible child. He showed himself to be someone other than who I married. I did not marry someone who would ever tell a kid such things. I married someone I thought was good and kind. He's not that person though, and was not willing to end that behavior. He would rather harass children and be mean to people than have his family. Update number 2, so as you can see, it's been 6 months since this all started unfolding, and well, since then I gave birth to my beautiful daughter. She is the light of my life, and she's one of the easiest babies I've ever been around. After 1 month of being apart, he contacted me and asked me if I would still be willing to enter into counseling regarding our situation. Of course, after being together for so long and us having a kid and my belief that marriage is not something to be taken lightly, I jumped at this. In counseling, it was revealed that he was doing a lot more than what I knew about. He was involved heavily in bullying people over the internet, and he said that this was his stress relief, that if people cannot take it, then it's their problem and not his. He admitted to being involved in taking pictures of fat women and posting them on Reddit, taking them from Tumblr, etc. In general, it was all worse than I'd originally known. He moved to also doing individual therapy while still not living at home and us not meeting elsewhere. He started to put his efforts elsewhere. He picked up a few new hobbies to release his tension to, and he then decided that he would stop, and we slowly merged our family together again. I was feeling happy, ecstatic really, that my daughter would have the life she deserved, but unfortunately, he is still at it. After 3 weeks of being together and our lives seeming normal, I discovered from his friend that he was still harassing and bullying teenagers, fat women, etc. I have reason to believe that he is one of the individuals who bullied Lila Elkhorn, which I've never heard about for some reason, as well as a few other trans teenagers. It broke my heart and solidified my decision. I tried to have one more counseling session to really get through to him, but he defended his actions as just the internet and not a big deal, still. And well, as of February, I filed for a divorce. It broke my heart and I wish there had been another way, but that's the end of this story. I cannot be in a marriage with someone who is so cruel to children. I can't. My daughter and I are moving to a smaller house closer to my family. She will be raised around many people who love her already. Either way, the next one is titled, Who is the a-hole here? So I recently moved into a property that backs up to an HOA neighborhood, my yard adjacent to about 4 of theirs. I'm not part of the HOA and the road to my house is a small private road and runs parallel to their private road. So when I first moved in, the county told me my trash pickup location was on their road. Mine's not got a good spot for a trash truck to turn around. After about 2 pickups, I find a note on my trash can with the usual HOA BS, aka cannot leave my can on their road, etc. Whatever, I take it to the end of my road and that works fine. Next I try and get hooked up with gas because electric heating is really expensive. The nearest gas line runs down their road. The utility is cool with it, but they block the construction. Fine, I install a tank and shortly thereafter get another note on my door saying the noise from the installation was disturbing and the tank is an eyesore. It's a buried tank and you cannot even see the cap from the HOA properties. That was that for around 6 months, except a few complaints of me mowing outside of HOA designated mowing hours, but within county hours, until a flatbed with a backhoe backs into my driveway. I walk out to see what's going on and apparently the sewer connection for the HOA runs under my property, something is clogged and they need to tear the pipe up to get a good look. Long story short, apparently the builder had some handshake deal with the previous owner about that sewer line and gave up a few bucks to let them run it through the property. However, there's no easement on the deed, nothing in writing, and I sent the backhoe guy off. Next, HOA president comes and knocks on my door, tells me the sewer is causing backup in several of the houses and no one can use their toilets, shower, run sinks, etc. until it is fixed, and rerunning the sewer down their road instead of across my property is gonna cost millions they don't have and take months. I said something like, man, that sucks for you guys, hope you get it fixed soon. The sign says no trespassing though, so if you could keep off the property, I would appreciate it. Have a nice day. I got a letter from their lawyer with a lot of threats a bit later, but didn't see much to back them up legally. Figured they can take me to court if they want. They have some giant loud-ass mobile poop tank stuck in someone's backyard for the past 3 months and I see no signs of a new pipe. A few of the HOA residents stopped by and said the houses were basically unlivable with the pump, could only take 5-minute showers, only flush twice and cannot sleep from the noise. Also, it costs a lot and someone lost a house sale, etc. and they didn't have any part of the HOA stupidity other than living in it. I told them I feel for them, but that HOA has been a pain in my rear since week 1 and I'm not inclined to let them go driving construction equipment across and digging holes in a yard I worked pretty hard on after the way they've been treating me. They told me I was an a-hole. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know if you think OP is the a-hole here or not. I'm very curious about what you have to say. A comment on Reddit said, not the a-hole, you live in the county, not the HOA, there's no easement on your deed, so the sewer line is probably against code or even illegal. I have no idea how these property things work. The residents need to take action against the HOA for unlivable conditions they created by their shortcuts and under the table deals, not you. I cannot wait for this episode of the People's Court. I'm also not so secretly delighted by the karma over the gas line they denied you. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, tell them if they pay for the unnecessary gas tank they caused and let you connect to the gas line where you need it and let you have a designated space on their road for your trash day and pay for a professional remake of your garden after the work they need, you will consider it. And the next one is titled, Neighbor keeps stealing my packages from porch, calls cops when confronted. So I have lived in my suburban neighborhood for nearly 3 years now. It's a quiet little cul-de-sac with manicured lawns and friendly neighbors. Or so I thought. I work as a freelance graphic designer from home. The flexible schedule allows me to set my own hours, but it also means I rely heavily on package deliveries for supplies. My neighbor Ron, who lives across the street, is retired. He spends most days at home working in his vegetable garden while his wife is out running errands. Ron always seemed a bit standoffish, quick exchanges of hellos but little else. I had noticed him watching while I retrieved packages or worked in my front yard. Just subtle glances out of his window with a stone-faced expression. Still, I thought nothing of it at first, just a private, reserved neighbor. That changed a month ago when packages started vanishing from my front porch. At first I assumed it was typical porch pirates or lost deliveries. But after the 5th package went missing, my suspicions grew. The thefts always happened during weekdays when most people were at work. Whoever was taking them clearly knew my daily schedule. My mind instinctively jumped to Ron. Having no job to occupy his day, he had the perfect opportunity to monitor my coming and goings. I felt a surge of anger at the idea of him stealing from me right under my nose, but I knew I needed proof before making accusations. The next time I had a delivery scheduled, I made sure to stay home without letting on that my plans had changed. I watched through the living room window with a perfect view of my front porch. Then around noon I spotted the mail truck dropping off a large box. As soon as the truck departed, I saw Ron peering out of his window. After a few moments he emerged from his house and hurried across the street. Without hesitation, he grabbed the package and scurried back inside. I saw red. My normally calm demeanor gave way to outrage. How dare he steal from me after I had only ever been kind to him? I marched out my front door and pounded on his before I could calm myself down. The door swung open and there stood Ron holding my unopened package, eyes wide open. "Just what do you think you're doing with my package?" I demanded. Ron's face switched from shock to nonchalance. "Package? What are you talking about? I was simply bringing your delivery inside for safekeeping," he replied smoothly. I fought to keep my voice steady. "I saw you take that from my porch just now. That's outright theft." Ron scoffed. "You must be mistaken. Why on earth would I take your belongings?" At this point, my hands were shaking with anger. "Cut the act, Ron. I've had multiple packages go missing over the past month. And now I just witnessed you stealing this one. How dare you?" Ron's facade finally cracked. He shifted uncomfortably and mumbled, "Look, it was just a few boxes. I didn't think it was a big deal. Don't you order stuff every day anyway?" "Of course it's a big deal," I shouted. "That's my property and not yours to take as you please." Ron's nonchalant attitude only made me more furious. How could someone be so entitled? I demanded that he return every single package he had taken immediately. At first, Ron tried dismissing it at just a couple of boxes, but my unwavering glare made it clear that I was not backing down. He reluctantly retrieved 8 packages from his house and handed them over. As I inspected the torn boxes, Ron claimed that was all he had taken. Unable to prove if more were stashed elsewhere, I decided to let it go for now. I warned him that I better not catch him on camera near my porch again, or I would call the police. Over the next week, I kept close watch for any suspicious activity from Ron. He seemed to have gotten the message and left my packages alone. Then, one evening, I noticed a large box I had been expecting was missing from my porch again. Fury and disbelief coursed through me. Surely Ron would not dare to steal from me again after I confronted him. I marched straight over to his house, ready to make it clear his antics had to stop for good. Yet again, he feigned ignorance and shock at my accusations. As my frustration reached a boiling point, Ron dropped a bombshell statement. "I actually already contacted the cops about you harassing me," he said smugly. "I never laid a hand on your precious packages, but I don't appreciate false accusations." I stood there stunned into silence as a police cruiser pulled up. The officer approached me looking unimpressed. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked in an authoritative tone. I quickly explained the situation, the multiple stolen packages catching Ron red-handed and his outrageous denial. The officer listened before replying, "Well, right now it's your word against his. Unless you have evidence, I cannot take action based on accusations alone." I couldn't believe it. Ron's smug look made it clear that he knew I had no hard proof. As the officer left, Ron had the audacity to threaten filing a restraining order against me for continued harassment. Over the next 2 weeks, my blood boiled as packages continued to go missing from my porch. Ron clearly felt empowered knowing I had no recourse against him, but his false sense of security would soon come crashing down. I was more determined than ever to catch him red-handed on camera. I discreetly set up a video surveillance system aimed at my porch without Ron noticing. The next time I had a delivery, I made sure to order expensive electronics that would tempt him. Like clockwork, Ron snatched the boxes minutes after they were dropped off, his brazenness on full display thanks to my new security footage. Armed with crystal clear video evidence, I confidently approached the same officer to file a report. As he reviewed the recordings, his demeanor noticeably shifted from doubtful to alarmed. "You were right all along," he admitted. "This proves the theft without question." He thanked me for persevering in gathering evidence before issuing an arrest warrant for Ron. That same day, I gave a satisfied smile watching the police cruiser pull up as Ron was taken away in handcuffs. In the subsequent court case, Ron was sentenced to a year of probation and ordered to pay hefty fines after being found guilty of theft and filing a false report. As part of a civil suit, he also had to reimburse me for the cost of stolen packages and surveillance equipment. The judge sternly warned that any violation of probation would result in jail time for Ron. I realized after his public shaming and stern punishments, he would likely think twice before stealing from anyone again. As I walked out of the courthouse, I breathed a sigh of relief and satisfaction. The neighborhood would surely be safer without Ron's underhanded schemes. Justice had finally been served. Update to the story: I thought all the drama with my thieving neighbor Ron was over after all of this. Well, a few weeks later, packages once again started vanishing from my porch at odd times. My blood ran cold. The next morning, I anxiously reviewed the camera footage. To my shock, the video showed Ron brazenly swiping another delivery in plain sight. I felt simultaneous rage at his audacity and triumph having him caught again on camera. Marching over to Ron's house, I pounded on the door holding up the incriminating video. When he answered, I shouted, "Haven't you already learned your lesson? You were caught on camera stealing again." Ron scowled, his friendly facade dropping again. "Look, I need cash to pay those ridiculous fines the judge slapped me with for what? Taking a few little boxes? Quit your whining and mind your own business." I stood speechless at his complete lack of remorse before responding, "Absolutely not. I'm reporting you to the police again and I'll be recommending jail time since you are already on probation." Ron's expression turned icy. "You will regret this," he hissed before slamming the door in my face. A chill ran down my spine at the ominous threat, but I remained resolute. At the police station, the officer's eyes widened in recognition. "Back again already, huh? Don't worry, we'll take it from here," he assured me. A few days later, I was gardening in my front yard when an ear-piercing noise shattered the calm. I turned in shock to see every single one of my front windows shattered. Standing in Ron's front doorway across the street was him grinning maniacally, baseball bat in hand. He pointed at me, yelling, "Told you that you would regret it." Then he turned and ran into his house, slamming the door. My heart pounded as I raced inside to call the cops. This had gone way too far. Ron was clearly dangerous. Thankfully, an officer arrived in minutes to inspect the shattered windows. I showed him the baseball bat footage caught on my security camera and he grimly confirmed my fears that Ron was unraveling fast. While waiting for backup, the officer suddenly received an alert over his radio. A home invader was reported one street over. The description matched Ron. Within minutes, a dozen police cars swarmed the area as Ron was cornered trying to loot another unsuspecting neighbor's home in broad daylight. Finally faced with overwhelming evidence of his crimes, Ron snapped. He became violent and had to be forcibly restrained when found with a stash of stolen goods. I later learned that he was sentenced to several years in prison with no chance of early parole or probation. My neighbor's theft scheme had apparently spiraled into a one-man crime wave fueled by entitlement and greed. As Ron was escorted away in handcuffs, I finally felt safe and at peace again in my own home. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.